Hey, good evening. What's up? How you doing? Welcome back. All of those things. Gabe DeArmond here. PowerMizzou.com. State of the Tigers back on Monday night for the first time in, I don't know, a minute. Drew King with me now on the other side of your screen. He's going to be replaced by Gerard Hamilton. Not immediately. Don't worry, Drew. We'll let you hang out for a while.
Oh,
But
get
but
nervous.
eventually, or force you to hang out for a while. Either
Right.
way, we'll bring Gerard in a little bit, talking some football, some basketball tonight. Before we do that, want to remind you to get in touch with our guy James Carlton at State Farm Insurance in Webster Groves, Missouri. If you live in Missouri or Illinois, check him out at carltoninsurance.net. You can give him a call at 314-961-4800. All of your insurance needs, home, auto, whatever it is you need. I mean, I don't know, I don't know if James can insure your pet or anything, but call him and ask and get a quote on it. And he'll donate $25 to Mizzou's NIL efforts. And every one of those certainly helps, as revenue sharing may or may not ever be approved. The portal may or may not ever close. And everybody can ask for a raise every single day in college sports. And Drew, do we have any idea who's actually on the roster right
Not really. It's
now? I mean, for
changes every
tonight, we
day.
do. Right.
Sure, for
Right.
now.
Yeah.
Maybe
Um, do we want to start with who's gone or who's here?
um we could flip a coin. No, let's start with I guess who's gone so far.
Okay.
Um
So, I mean, really, I think since the last time we did this, the only real news is Peyton Marshall,
yeah.
right? Like, I don't know, maybe Marcus Allen happened
Yeah,
since we
maybe
last did
so.
a show. So it's basically Aiden Shaw, Marcus Allen, Peyton Marshall. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your I care level about those departures?
Um I would say probably a 3 or a 4, not very high. You look at like what those guys did this year. None of them were playing big minutes. None of them were a regular part of the rotation. And like each guy had moments this year, but you can replace moments, right?
Yeah.
Um, so obviously, like the upside for each of those guys at their next spot, maybe they pan out better than they did here. Um, but as far as like having to replace those spots, I don't think it'll be too difficult for Mizzou.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, your level is probably even a little higher than mine. I was gonna go 2 to 2.5. So here's and want to invite you guys, questions, comments, whatever, put them in the chat. We'll get to them throughout the show. Again, we're gonna do basketball for about the first half hour, then we'll bring Gerard in and talk football and stuff like that. So if you've got football questions, save those till Gerard is up. But if you got hoop stuff, get to it. But here's the hard part about doing this and trying to figure out how much I should care, right? Like, if you bring in 5 freshmen, you just do it knowing that at least 2 of them are not finishing their careers here. And
Yeah,
frankly, I would think probably more like 3 or 4 are not
yeah,
finishing their careers here. And so I think what's happening is fans are going through this adjustment period of, for 20 years, they've followed recruiting and like they've gotten attached to these guys in high school and, oh, this kid's a top 100 kid and I really like him and he's going to be good and I'm going to watch his whole career. And now you do that. And like 2 of these kids haven't even spent a year on in Columbia before they leave. And the thing is, it's not unusual. This is just how it is. And like anything, I think it's hard for any of us to adjust to, oh no, this isn't like bad or unusual. This is just how it is everywhere.
well, yeah, like I went to EYBL tournaments to watch Marcus Allen play in person, and I was watching like the overtime elite finals to see Peyton Marshall's games. And I'm not gonna say like that was time wasted, but like you expected, to see a little bit more out of those guys for sure. Um, and so, like you said, like you know, I'm kind of starting to lean toward the people who say like maybe you shouldn't recruit high school at all, right? Because if, like, I think this year was a reminder, Mizzou had a top 5 class, and none of those freshmen played a lick. They didn't make a difference this
Right.
season, right? And it's a reminder that like freshmen just kind of suck. It takes a while for them to get good at basketball.
Here's where I'll argue against you
Okay.
about recruiting high school, because it is easier and cheaper to keep a kid on your team once you have him than it is to go pay him to come out of the portal. So, like, now look, Missouri spent money to get Peyton Marshall and Marcus Allen here. Like, there is not, I think that's one thing people need to understand. There's not a single division or not a single high major basketball player doing it for free. Not one. So all these guys get money, right? But whatever that price tag was, and we all hear numbers, but I'm not all that interested in throwing them around because I don't even know if they're true. But whatever that number was, I mean, the upside of recruiting those kids, like let's say Honor Boateng becomes what Missouri coaches and fans think he's going to become, right? And let's say that happens next year. Well, now, like, he is already here. He knows this system. He knows the guys on the team. In theory, it is probably easier and cheaper for Missouri to keep that kid going into year 3 than it would be for someone else to poach him. That doesn't mean he won't leave. That doesn't mean somebody won't come in and pay him. But if Missouri's price, or if the portal price for that kid is X, then Missouri's price might be X minus 300,000, right? And that is a big deal. So I think I would still bring the high school kids in. I would just do it with the full understanding that like half of them are leaving within a year or two. And it's just the way it goes. I compared it to quarterback recruiting. Like, bring in 3 and understand the 2 of them aren't finishing their careers here. And you just have to be okay with that.
And that's fair, Gabe. But like, if we're talking about actual impact, right? Like, Luke Northweather can probably put up the same stats that Peyton Marshall did this year. And so the upside, like you're talking about, is it is cheaper to retain them. And they obviously have a lot more upside than somebody like a Luke Northweather. But if we're talking about like what they actually bring as freshmen, it's not that difficult to replace. And price-wise, I think it's not that difficult to replace.
No, I totally agree with you. I'm just saying, like, okay, let's say Missouri signs none of those guys last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, then you're in the portal for 10 guys instead of 5 this year. Or you would have been in the portal for, I can't remember how many they took last year, but 5 more guys than they took. Like, I guess ultimately I don't really care where they come from. I just think you have to understand that if we're talking about 15 guys on a roster, you have to understand that, like, what's a fair number? 15 guys on any given roster, how many are going to come back?
I mean, 12 at the most.
Like, I think no more than 6.
Yeah.
Because 4 are going to graduate. Let's say 4 done out of eligibility, and probably at least 3 or 4 more are going to leave. I mean, the upside is you're keeping 8 to 9 kids every year, and I don't think it matters where they come. I don't really. I think the whole thing is just understand guys are going to leave wherever they come from. I don't know if it matters.
Well, and so here's the flip side too, Gabe, is it takes a lot more, I feel like, to land a high school recruit than it does to take a transfer, right? Like, these are
money-wise?
4 and 5 year relationships. Like, Marcus Allen's known CY his whole life.
Time-wise.
Yeah. Like, I think it takes a lot more time and probably like travel too. Like, you got to, like, they're flying around to go see these guys in practice. So yeah, I think with Marcus Allen,
but like, what else are they going to do at that time? What the hell else is Dennis doing in May or June?
Well, he's got 3 kids, Game.
Well, but you get, I'm talking work related. Like he's going
Yeah,
to work some during that time of year.
sure.
No, I get it. Like he's got other things, but I don't know. Like it's not like that's wasted time.
In some ways, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So all right, we've spent 15 minutes talking about 3 kids that frankly, like, good luck to them.
Yeah,
I just I don't care. Like it's not really on my radar at all. Um, so let's talk about what they brought in. We've talked about Javon Porter, obviously.
yeah,
Um, I don't think we've talked about Sebastian Mack. I think you
correct.
know a lot more about him than I do. So, how do you feel about that one?
Yeah, so with him, I think a lot of people were looking at them to bring in perimeter players to make up the shooting of Tamar Bates and Caleb Grill. I think Mack is a guy who's more going to replace the free throw shooting that they're losing out of guys like Tony Perkins and Tamar Bates and Caleb Grill and Marquez Warwick too. So like those 4 seniors that I just named shot like a little bit over 300 free throws this season. Sebastian Mack in his first year had over 150 free throws. Like this guy is a really physical downhill driver. Um, doesn't have a consistent jumper yet. He's hovering at around 31% from 3. So that's something that they're probably hoping can improve when he gets here. But he's a guy who can go get his own shot with the ball in his hands. He's really effective in the pick and roll. And then on top of that, like he was a pretty impactful defender at UCLA. And so I know we got Aiden in the comments here asking about the backcourt with him and Ant Robinson and T.O. Barrett. Like that's going to be hell to play against every night to try and attack those 3 when they're going to kind of smother you, I think. So I think Mac, he's not a perfect fit, and it's hard to get those kind of guys in the portal, but I think he checks a lot of boxes that they were looking for at that second guard spot.
I haven't done a ton of research on this. That's your job. It's just
Yeah.
my job to fire off takes on YouTube. So,
Yeah.
but like, tell me whether it's right or wrong to look at this and go, I think this is kind of a Tony Perkins role replacement type.
Yeah, I think that's not an unfair comparison. Mac isn't really a playmaker. I wouldn't say he's a point guard like Tony was at Iowa. So like if Ant comes off the floor, I wouldn't necessarily trust Mac to take on the lead guard duty, and maybe T.O.'s more of a better fit for that. But as far as kind of an off the ball guard or somebody who like you just need a bucket, like that's your guy. And Tony did some of that this year.
All right. The other one, Sean Phillips, Arizona State. This is better, worse, or the same as having Josh Gray on the roster?
Yeah, I think everybody's been calling him a more athletic Josh Gray. I think that's pretty accurate. Like,
I don't think that's unfair, right?
yeah, yeah. He rebounds pretty well, not quite at the level of Josh Gray, but still pretty good. He blocked a lot of shots at Arizona State, but also commits a lot of fouls, and that's exactly what Josh Gray did at South Carolina last year. But it doesn't shoot any threes, just like Josh Gray. Not a great free throw shooter, just like Josh Gray. The only thing that really separates them is Sean Phillips can get up off the floor. He floats a little bit.
Right.
He's got some bounce to him. And so Josh Gray is pretty cement footed, I feel like. And, you know, he was okay at containing guards off the switches. He got cooked a couple of times this year, but I think that Sean Phillips can move a little bit. He's more fluid is kind of how I described him. He's not quite as fast as like Mo Diarra, but I thought that he moved closer like that than he did to Gray from the clips that I saw. So I think that he'll be, I think he could be a better fit than Josh Gray was this year. But he's still kind of rough around the edges for sure.
Sean Phillips, more exciting on the basketball court. Josh Gray, more exciting in the post-game locker room videos and interviews
Yeah,
on SEC Network. Fair?
that's fair. One other thing with Phillips, I think he was in like the 71st percentile scoring as the roll man in pick and rolls. And so, like, you put him with Sebastian Mack, who's supposed to be this elite pick and roll ball handler. That could be a kind of an interesting element to Mizzou's offense next year, and could help replace some of what they're losing with the 3-point shooting, right? That might be one of the ways to get efficient offense.
All right. So, like, bottom line, Missouri is better or worse than it was a month ago when the season ended, 3.5 weeks ago, whatever it is.
So I'll say.
I mean, I'll go first
worse.
if you want me to, because
I'll say slightly worse.
Yeah, I'll say maybe not even slightly worse, just because like I don't know who the Caleb Grill and Tamar Bates are on this team. Now, look, a year ago at this time, I didn't know Caleb Grill was Caleb Grill. So I am open to the possibility that Honor Boating is Tamar Bates and Trent Pierce is Caleb Grill. And all that. So, but the point is that it kind of ties back to what we spent the first 15 minutes talking about. Like, Dennis is banking on the reasons this team is going to get better next year are guys that are already here.
Mm-hmm.
Not the reasons are, if Mark Mitchell was a B+ player last year, he's going to be an A- player this year. If Ant Robinson was a B player last year, he's going to be an A player. Honor Boating is going to contribute. Trent Pierce is going to be better. Jacob Cruz is going to be better. All that.
Trent Burns is going to be.
Right. Trent Burns is going to be on the floor. Yeah. But the point being, like, it's a whole lot of ifs at this point. And if these things all happen, yeah, they could be better. But like, the odds say that all of the ifs don't usually get positive answers, right?
Correct. I know I'm a little bit more optimistic than you about it. And my main thinking is you've got an all SEC player in Mark Mitchell. And it was a year where like SEC was an all-time great conference. They had the national champion. You've got an all SEC defender in Ant Robinson, right? And I think he'll be a preseason all SEC candidate. That's a higher floor than I would say half the teams in the SEC is going to have this year.
Like, well, you go ahead.
Just having those two guys specifically gives them a head start than a lot of these other teams. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about next.
Yeah, you kind of hit on one of the reasons I actually do feel better, because I looked into it this morning. Like, dude, this league is not going to be what it was last year. Now, don't get me wrong. It's still going to be good because these teams are going to go out and spend in the portal. And Missouri still has a spot, maybe 2 left. I don't think they should use 2. I think they should pool the Marcus Allen and Peyton Marshall money and go find the best scorer they can find and F the 15th spot. Like, that's just, unless somebody wants to come here for free and hang out, that's fine. But like, you look around this league, Alabama loses everybody. Tennessee lost, like, they only lose 6 guys, but it's 6 of their top 7 scorers. Texas A&M may not have a basketball team next year. I mean, like, Missouri, I ran the numbers, and for those of you who haven't read it, like, you go read 10 Thoughts this morning. If Colin Murray Boyles goes pro, Missouri is looking to replace the least amount of points from last year's SEC that they've lost. They replace less rebounding than every team but Vanderbilt, and they replace fewer assists than any team in the conference. Like, They are bringing more from this year's team back, a team that finished 7th in that really good league and went to the NCAA tournament. So I think there is reason to believe that even if the talent on the roster is not quite as good, that next year's season could be better.
Right, because the conference as a whole is going to kind of be reset in some
Yeah.
ways. And
And
so
we're going to find out, like, are all these teams going to do this every year? Like, I
right.
understand Alabama and Auburn and Kentucky are throwing around insane amounts of money. They're going to get guys. I'm not saying they won't be good
Yeah.
next year. But like, is this just how it's going to be every year? 10 guys out the door, and we're going to replace. And look, there's an argument for it, and you made it. I'm not saying either one is right or wrong. I'm just really interested to see how it's going to go.
Well, and to that point, I know like a lot of people are kind of antsy about why don't we have a shooter yet? But I'm looking at the team rankings in the transfer portal right now. Arkansas doesn't have a commit yet. I think Malik Ewan is on campus for them right now, and that might be their first guy. Florida doesn't have a commit yet. They got to replace the entire roster. Alabama's got 3 guys. Tennessee's got 2. Oklahoma has 2. Vanderbilt has 3. Georgia has 3. Like, they still have a lot of spots to fill on each of these rosters.
Which I think is the Missouri fans' concern is not the numbers, but who. And
Yeah.
I get it, guys. I do. I will say this, and I've said this since day one. There is a clear, we're going to wait and see what happens with the market and what happens with the Sephora sale that is coming up for
It's already ended. It ends today.
oh no. Well, it's 7:22. You might be able to get there. But point being, like there's a clear wait and see what happens with this market. Somebody told me today, and I don't know if these numbers are true or not. I think they're probably about right. I don't have any interest in really knowing for sure, but somebody told me today there's between 1,700 and 1,800 kids still in the transfer portal. Like, there's going to be a lot of dudes that think they're getting $1.5 million that 2 weeks from now figure out they are not getting $1.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to have a spot or two for when that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. It's gonna be like the Sephora sale that ends today.
Right. Like, all of a sudden you better get there, man.
Yeah, because like eventually the demand for those kinds of numbers is gonna go away. And so you're seeing like the really high end names go right now. Like Keyshawn Hall got snapped up pretty quick by Auburn. But that's Auburn's only commit so far, and they're losing Cardwell, they're losing Janai Broom, they might lose Pettiford. Like, there's a lot of spots that Bruce Pearl has to figure out what to do with, and so it's just slow for everyone right now. Mizzou's got 2 guys that I think are starter caliber, right? They probably need at least one more. So it'll take some time, but I do have some confidence they'll figure it out. Like, they are going to fill those spots eventually.
So I want to do this real quick, and then we got a couple questions we'll get to, and then we'll go ahead and switch over to football. But so here's the kind of the argument of, building from within and doing this, at least for this year, the way Dennis is doing it. I'm not objecting to bringing in 12 new guys if you have to, but when you have Ant Robinson, when you've spent a lot of your money to bring guys back, I want to play this game with you. If Mark Mitchell went in the transfer portal, how much money do you think somebody would pay him to play on their team? Based on the kind of numbers we've heard thrown around this year.
Yeah. Based on those numbers, $2 million.
I think he's close to a $2 million player. If he goes in the portal, he's not costing Missouri $2 million. I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
If Ant Robinson goes in the portal, what do you think he could get?
$1.5 million.
Yeah. I mean, if what we've heard about these mid-major guys that are asking, I mean, I asked about a guy today that, good player, on a very good team, didn't start. Pedestrian numbers, certainly not double figures, 1.5. Ant Robinson can do that. Ant Robinson did that, you know. All right, this is where it gets tougher. If Jacob Cruz goes in the transfer portal, what do you think he could get?
It's a good question. I'll go like half of Ant Robinson. I'll say it's like 750,000.
That's where I was going to fall. Like, I know people think it's a joke. I know everybody's saying these guys aren't worth that. No, they aren't. But you know why they are? Because somebody says they are, and somebody's willing to pay it. And so that's my point, is just because, like, okay, if Mark Mitchell is on your roster, whatever, and I don't know numbers. I'm confident Missouri's not paying anybody on the roster $2 million. I'll just say that. So they're getting him for less than that. If you, like, people wanted another Mark Mitchell for the big man out of the portal, that's $2 to $2.5 million in this current market. I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And so, and if you do that, if you bring in a guy that's making 2.5 and Mark's not making 2.5,
he's gonna turn around and say, "Where's my $2 million?"
He gonna be Nico Ayama, whatever his name is, right? And maybe not. Like, I shouldn't put that on Mark. He seems like he seems like he's happy here. All that. I'm not saying that, but it would be human nature for that to be the case.
And so
like, I know people think we're spinning this. We're just telling you guys what's going on. I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent. This is what's happening.
Right. So Mizzou's goal for these next couple of weeks is just playing the prices right. Like, how much would you spend on this guy, and is that the number he's looking for? And for a lot of guys that they've been connected to, the price has not been right. And I think a lot of this could be a lot easier if we move to a professional model and we had players sign contracts, right? Not going to happen this year, but yeah, like I think that
it's not going to, that won't happen in the 2020s. I'm confident saying that. Like, it may eventually happen, but 2030 at the earliest.
Yeah. So we're going to keep playing this game, and Mizzou's going to keep playing whack-a-mole, I guess.
All right, so let's hit a couple questions real quick. Billy, if you can throw Ron's question up. Any word on what Dennis wants the schedule to look like next year? I haven't heard anything. I hope it's a little bit different than this year's was. I don't know if it will be.
Right, and again, I think that this year was more about taking the easiest path to get back to the NCAA tournament. I think he showed in his second year he's willing to play a little bit tougher. He took on the Minnesota home and home. He took on Memphis home and home. He had the Seton Hall neutral site game. I'll be curious to see if he wants to play in a real MTE this season. But yeah, I think that they're not going to play 20 home games again next year. I'd be surprised by that.
All right, then let's throw Sean's question up. And this is the thing, guys. Like, we're looking at it from Missouri's perspective, but what happens if nobody wants the 1,700 kids in the portal? I'm gonna guess about 40% of those kids will not play Division I basketball next year. I mean, it's just that's the numbers. There's not that many spots available. There's a lot of kids out there getting really bad advice. Like, I'm pretty confident Marcus Allen. We saw Aiden Shaw land at BC. Like, I'm pretty confident Marcus Allen and Peyton Marshall are playing D1 basketball next year, right?
Yeah.
You think they're high major?
I think Marcus Allen probably. Peyton Marshall will probably go high major too. Yeah, I'll say both.
I think they will.
I don't know that they'll play.
Right. I think they might be a little bit disappointed to find out what their what the price tag is, what the paycheck is.
Right.
You know, like I think there might be some second thoughts there for at least one of those kids. Marcus Allen seems tailor-made to go back to Miami or Florida State to me.
Yeah.
that'll happen.
Well,
Peyton
I think
Marshall,
it's gonna be, and this whole thing has really just reminded me of like the Jordan Butler for Josh Gray swap. But I think that Marcus Allen and Peyton Marshall are gonna have a Jordan Butler type of scenario, unless like they significantly improve from this year, where yeah, you're still high major, but you're also kind of still on the end of the bench and not getting regular minutes in the rotation. Like the grass, as we've
you
learned from Michi Johnson, is always greener on the other side.
right. You're just trading uniforms is all you're doing. Like there's three reasons kids transfer. Number one is money. Well, there's four. Number one is money. Number two is playing time. Number three is because they can. And number four is so people love them on social media and they get to post a graphic. And like, I'm not convinced that there are kids I think who like, I think number four is a way bigger reason than it should be.
Everybody loves a graphic, Gabe.
Well, and just because they have envy. They see their buddy go in the portal and it's like, oh man, those fans are hitting them up on Instagram and
The clout,
showing the love and growing their following. Man, nobody pays attention to me because I just came to this place and everybody done forgot about me. And then they go in the portal and they post their graphic that congratulations, man, you're going to Siena. Cool.
I've always thought that's
Nothing
why
against
LeBron
Siena.
left
I'm sure it's a
Cleveland.
great place.
I've always
For the clout.
the clout. Well, just like LeBron came to the NBA straight out of high school, so he never had that moment where he's got the hats in front of him, and he puts one on and he throws it to the side, and then he opens his jacket and it's Miami, So I think that everybody kind of wants their version of the decision. Yeah, so I agree with you. Number four, a little bit too important for my taste.
Number three is also a stupid reason. There's a lot of things you can do that you don't need to do. All right, let's make sure Gerard is awake and turns his camera on in the green room, and we will bring him on for the crosstalk for just a minute to see if Gerard, you got anything you need to say to Drew? Any messages that needs to be sent here before we let him go?
No, sir. Just when you get back from Texas, back to this work, back to this, this lab work, back to the hooping. That's it.
If anyone is brave enough, Gerard and I will be at the Arc Thursday mornings through the rest of the off season. So if anyone dares to challenge us, you know where to find us now.
This could be a YouTube series. If 2-on-2 you can beat Gerard and Drew in basketball, you get a free month at Power Mizzou.
Well, Drew, we really got to lock in then because I feel like Gabe he's got the confidence, but then after one, he's like, "Yo, guys."
Oh no, look, I didn't say the free month was coming out of my cut. You got the one playing.
I got you.
All right, Drew, enjoy Texas, man.
Yeah, we'll do. Appreciate it. See y'all.
All right. Mitchell is asking if we ask Tipton Edits for graphics when we move to 24/7. Joe's a good dude. He does not work for 24/7. I don't believe he would make a 24/7 graphic. I had somebody else do that. So, all right. Gerard, I think that's a good place to start because we spent a lot of time talking transfer portal and whether high school recruiting is important or not. Jackson Cantwell puts out his top four. Missouri's not in it. He's making a decision before the official visit to Missouri, which I assume won't happen. Scale of 1 to 10, how much you care? Not how much do you care? How much do you think fans should care?
3, maybe.
I was going to say 3.5, something like that.
I mean, yeah, you always want to get, the prize recruits and stuff like that because even if that person doesn't play, just another high profile prospect, they may see it and think the same thing when they thought about Lou and Williams coming here. What they got going on, in Columbia and stuff like that. So that helps. But I always go back to, I think it was either last offseason or maybe in the 2023 offseason. I don't know, it's 1 and 2. But I remember Coach Drink was talking about offensive linemen, and it's kind of like, even if they're high profile prospects like Logan Riker and stuff like that, even if you got the size, it still kind of takes a minute to be ready to play as an offensive lineman in the SEC. So
Yeah.
just because you've got the ranking and stuff behind you, that doesn't automatically mean plug and play. And because Missouri has been better and they've been able to develop guys and stuff like that, and they can get vets in the transfer portal and stuff like that, it wouldn't have been like a player like Jackson would necessarily just instantly be in the starting lineup or something, you know?
Right. And I don't want any of this to come off as sour grapes. Look, guys, I think you know by now. I don't care where Jackson Cantwell plays college football. He'd do whatever he wants. It's fine. Like, his decision affects my mood zero. So this is not that. But the point is, like, and it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with Drew at the very beginning of, whether you take these high school kids or not. And my opinion in football is different than in basketball. In football, at running back, I think you can be ready to play day one. At wide receiver, you can be ready to play day one. At defensive back, you can be ready to play day one. At defensive end, if you're defensive end linebacker, if you're special, you can play day one.
Mm-hmm.
Offensive line, defensive tackle, quarterback, like, you got to be a superstar to play day one. Nixa, Missouri is a long way from the Southeastern Conference. And, like, I don't mean that. Like, I watched Dorial Green Beckham play high school football against dudes that looked like me from Joplin, Missouri, right? I watched that game on ESPN, and he looked like an absolute freak. That kid had about 350 yards his freshman year at Missouri. So the point is, adjusting from the level of football Jackson is playing on the offensive line to make an impact in year one is virtually impossible. So given what it costs to get a kid like that on campus, I'm not sure I want to invest in the development year. Like, they just invested in Williams Nwaneri's development year, and they freaking knew from day one it was going to be a development year. There was never any expectation that Williams Nwaneri was going to play a lot more than he did. Like, I think they want him to play a little more, but nobody ever thought he was a starter or a big-time impact guy as a true freshman. And they invested a boatload of money in his development year to just watch him say goodbye. I wouldn't do that unless I know the kid is getting on the field. I would never do it again.
Correct. Yeah. If you're not under that Luther Burden plan, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And Luther plays wide receiver, a position where he can do it. And he's a kid that, like, they looked at his senior, like, you knew that kid was an NFL football player as a senior in high school.
Right. So, I mean, I agree with everything you said. It's just, especially with how crazy this portal is, it feels like every day we find something to learn something new or see something we haven't seen. Yeah. So, yeah, why spend the money on, how can I put this? You're spending all this money on basically an unknown product. Like, you're investing, obviously,
and not one you think you're going to see a return on next year.
Yeah, like it's a blind investment to a degree. So yeah, maybe, and obviously hope Canwell has a great career wherever he's at. It's not trying to be nothing like that, but if he's in the portal or something down the line or whatever, and he's got a couple seasons under his belt or whatever the case may be, you can get him there. You can meet in the middle. You can still have that Missouri connection or whatever it means, but that may be better down the line where it helps everybody instead of one side feeling like maybe it's an overpay, one side feeling like I'm not getting an opportunity to play and things of that nature.
All right. So John says then there's no reason to spend one NIL dollar on high school kids. No, that's not true.
No.
The ones that can play right away, yes.
Yeah.
Donovan Olubade is going to play this year. That's worth the investment. Javion Hilton's going to play this year. That's worth the investment. Some of the guys, like you can take a 3-star project, right? Like, cool. I don't want to pick out an individual kid but if you got some random 3-star linebacker prospect, like, that's probably not breaking the bank. You don't have to make a ridiculous NIL offer to get that kid on campus, right? So sure, why not? Go ahead and do it. And if he leaves, he leaves. What we're saying is, if you've got a kid that is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, and make no mistake, that's what Jackson Cantwell is going to cost. And he's not at a position that it is very likely he's going to play next year. Like, I'm not saying you don't recruit Jackson Cantwell. You have to recruit Jackson Cantwell. I get it. We're just saying, I don't really think it hurts that bad that you don't get him, because like a lot of people are saying, and like you were saying, it's why you don't burn bridges. It's why you keep relationships. It's why when Jackson Cantwell calls you to say, hey, man, I'm putting out my top 4 and you're not in it, you don't tell him to, you don't use bad words. You say, good luck. I hope things change. If they do, we'll talk to you down the road. Phone's always here. Give us a call anytime you want. Because a year from now, maybe it's Georgia or Miami or Ohio State that has paid that amount of money for this kid to develop, and he's homesick or he wants to play more or whatever the reason is. And then you get that phone call, like, and you didn't spend the money it's going to cost this year. Like, again, we're not saying don't take him. If Jackson Cantwell wanted to commit here, Missouri would 100% take him and pay him. I just don't think it's the worst thing in the world that it isn't happening.
Correct. And one more thing on that, like if he goes to Georgia per se, and I'm just using Georgia because I think of the team's name. I mean, obviously most prestige, the one that's winning the most, like currently right now. If they're paying him and he's not going to start or whatever at Georgia, I mean, that's probably some of their recruiting pitch. Like, you may not play right now, but you're going to learn under a champion and stuff like that. They can afford to pay that. And I'm not saying Missouri doesn't have that money, but again, like if Georgia's doing it, that's usually part of the thing. I would know if I was a Missouri, someone working for Missouri, we're going to pay this kid. Part of me would think, I would hope he's just a little bit. I would want him to play if he could.
Yeah.
And because that's unlikely, though, like you said, it's not the worst thing in the world.
100%. Totally get why they didn't empty the bank for Jackson, but were they willing to pony up for Lamont Rogers? I mean, look, they went back and forth with Lamont Rogers for a long time. Lamont Rogers is a Texas kid who stayed in Texas in the end. I mean, did he get money? I don't know. Does Missouri have Texas or Texas A&M money? I kind of doubt that. Nobody has Texas A&M money. They're paying a dude $66 million to not work for them. So nobody has that kind of FU money. All right, let's hit the other portal thing. And it's not Mizzou related, but it's the story, man. Your reaction to the Nico story was what?
Lol. LOL. Like, people, whether it's him or some people are saying it's his dad, whoever it is, I just think people are greedy. You're going to pay $2 million. You're just at the college football playoff. And personally, I think you made that off, good defense, great run game. And you're doing all this as a freshman. You got your NIL deal as a senior. Like, you kind of got it made. So, and I'm not saying this is on him per se, but again, if there's truth to, people behind the scenes getting this, it's just greedy. Like, you're getting to develop in the SEC. You get to be the face of a top 12, 15 team or whatever. And now it's April, was it 14th, 15th? We're done with spring ball for a lot of teams. And you can't play in the SEC because of that rule they have about the, transferring within the league and stuff like that. So without sitting out a year. So you're looking for a team. Where are you going to go? I just feel bad for the kid just because, sheesh, this is terrible timing.
I think there's a lot of people getting bad advice. But let me play the other side. And I want to be clear. I'm not saying I think Nico has handled this well and all that. That's not the point. But let me play the other side of this. Do you know sitting here today that Nico is an NFL quarterback?
No.
Okay.
Not sure. I'm sure you would somewhere, but when I think
it's possible, but you don't know it.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't know that Nico is a first-round draft pick, $8 million signing bonus, all this stuff. If the rumors are to be believed, Carson Beck got about $3.5 million to go to Miami. Mm-hmm. Darian Mensah got about $4 million to go to Duke. You think Nico's as good as those guys?
No.
See, no. I can make the argument he is. I think they're pretty similar.
I mean, when I think Carson Beck, though, I do take into account winning and some of the things he's had to do. He's
But
not
like,
the greatest, but
but like, was he what game did he win Georgia?
fair. But I think leading, not effing it up per se in some instances, that
But
has.
like, that's what Nico did last year. He did the same thing.
I'm okay. I get it. I'm just thinking when I think Nico, I forgot what stat it was, but like he didn't have that many touchdowns in the SEC, and most of them came
Right.
against like Vanderbilt. I mean, that doesn't
Like, right. I'm not arguing Nico is a great quarterback. I'm arguing if he was making 2 million and sees Carson Beck make 3.5 and Darian Mensah make 4, like, this is the system. So here's the point I'm making. If you are not, take Nico out of it. If you are a kid like Nico, okay, cool. He made $2 million last year. Hit the portal. Maybe you find somebody to pay you 2.5 this year. Maybe you don't, but maybe you do. Maybe you play well. Then maybe you hit the portal again. Find somebody to pay you 3. You know what? You never get drafted to the NFL. You've just made $7.5 million before you graduate from college, and you never have to work a day in your life if you're smart. Like, I'm just saying, this is the system. I can't really, like, is it the perfect way to handle it? No, but I'm also not going to shit on a kid for maximizing his earning power at the height of his career.
which would personally for me get to do. It's about making money, or do you want to go to the league? Where are you going to develop and be able to put seasons together and great tape together? I mean, you could, I guess,
but if you're good enough, the league finds you. Like, there's a lot of quarterbacks that didn't play in the SEC.
We just said we don't know if he's good enough for the league. So I would think for certain people, I get in college football, he could move around to make the money. But I would think also if you want to make the league, which I think most of these kids want to do, I mean, it would help you to kind of be stable and grow in one spot instead of moving around. And what Freeway Jerry says Nico is a scoundrel for trying to hold out during the playoffs last year. That is insane.
And like, I want to be clear. I'm not trying to, I'm not like taking his side. I think the whole thing kind of sucks. But I think the reason the whole thing sucks and the reason it even exists is because this system is so stupid that we have in place that it allows for it to happen every year.
Yeah, it's I heard Drew right before he got off was just saying like they need to move to a better model and just give contracts and stuff like that. And yeah, it gets messy real quick. And I know obviously for you guys as Missouri fans, if this tanks Tennessee or whatever, like great. Obviously they're going to go in the portal and try to get somebody, but it stinks for the teams whenever stuff like this happens, and it stinks for the player, especially when it happens around spring, just because of all the stuff that's going to have to go into finding a new team, learning their playbook, and everything else.
Right. So it's like anything else in life. It doesn't bother anybody till it happens to you, right? Like everybody's taking advantage of this system, and now all of a sudden, this system that Tennessee fans love that allowed them to get some of these dudes that went to the playoff. Now it's a dumbass system. Well, no, it's always been a dumbass system, but nobody in college football looks out for anybody else, you know. And I think what this has done, what NIL has done, is like I wrote this morning. I sat on my couch for 6 hours yesterday, and I watched a 35-year-old man who is the best in the world at what he does, like break down sobbing uncontrollably. I bet Rory McIlroy didn't even know how much money he won with that putt. Because that's not what it was about. And that's what we want to think sports is about, is that. Not this shit that he's doing, that Nico's doing. You know, we all know it's about both. And Rory made $4.2 million and all that. So, and he's made probably hundreds of millions in his life. But like, we all want to think that the real reason it matters is why it mattered to him yesterday. And NIL is showing us that there's a lot of kids that's not why it matters.
Yeah, which is, again, especially when you're going for so long of just about loving a university and wanting to get to the next level. And now there's so many players. And what I'm not going to say bothers me, but I guess another plot, or I mean, like a hole in the system is no matter how good or bad players are, everybody gets to abuse it, as they should. It should be like equal opportunity. But I would get it if it was the top 10 guys or whatever doing this. But sometimes when you start hearing some of these average to below average guys doing all the move around and got 9 seasons, it's just kind of like, what are we doing?
Right, like the 85th scholarship player on every SEC football team, I bet made 40 or 50 grand last year to post some stuff on Instagram. It's a stupid system.
It is. It's insane. But
you
hey,
know, so
get that money though. I get that. I'm not mad at you.
Right,
Get that money.
right. Like, and here's the difference between sports and everything else. Like, I got a raise when we moved. Like, we all do this. And for some reason, we think athletes shouldn't care about how much they make, right? Like there should be a middle ground here.
No, absolutely. It just needs to be done more efficiently.
Agreed. All right, Billy, if we can kind of go back and hit some of the questions or whatever out of the chat in the last 10 minutes here with Gerard, we'll hit it that way. All right, Freeway Jared wants to know any draft plans with no Mizzou guys attended.
I'm still going to be locked into the draft because I always am. We're definitely this is one of my favorite times of the year. I start locking in on the mock drafts, start seeing what Kansas City may do. Obviously, I'm keeping a close eye on what those top 5 to 10 teams will do, especially with Armand. Still looking and getting the Luther confusion, but I mean, I'm just going to be locked in, sitting right there. This next room over is my living room, watching the draft. Hopefully, not doing too much. I think the draft is at the end of when the portal window is. So hopefully
it literally the draft first round of the draft is on the day the portal closes.
Oh, okay. So if y'all want to keep it quiet, Missouri, for that day and just get everything done on the first 9 days, we're good.
So let's do this real quick. Best case, worst case for the 2 Mizzou guys that we know are getting drafted. And I'm not talking best case, worst case, like where they fit. I'm talking about where you most want to see them picked and where you least want to see them picked. Let's do Armand Mimbo first.
Best case. I mean, for him, I would just say as high as possible. So, and which is high as high as I've seen him is New England at 4.
At 3. Okay. Who has 3? Do you know offhand?
Giants.
Yeah. Oh, so, I don't wish that on him. Yeah. 4.
But I mean, New England needs everything. They need a receiver very badly. They need offensive linemen very badly. I mean, whichever route they go with those 2 positions, I mean, it can't hurt. And Drake May's going to need both of them. So for Armand, just highest as he can be. What's the worst? I know this just.
I already know my answer here. I'll be interested to know if it's the same for you.
I'm trying to think of a team.
Mine is he goes number 6.
Who's at 6?
The Raiders have the 6th pick.
Yeah, they don't.
Like, I can't even root for him to do well, and they ruin people, so I don't want him to go there.
I would. Okay, we got some of the top 10 up here. No one in that top 10 is really scaring me for real. I would say either one of them going to Cincinnati just because, frankly, they're the op. So no Cincinnati, no helping Joe Burrow in any fashion. I think for Luther, I think a team, and I said this in one of my columns a few weeks ago, going to San Francisco, lost Deebo Samuel. Brandon Ayuk is coming off of ACL. They don't know, exactly when he's going to come back. They could use him for sure. And I mean, he's had a Deebo Samuel comp for years now. I think it would just make sense from like a stylistic standpoint.
All right, I'm just going selfish here. I'd like to see Luther, Minnesota at 24. Opposite, put him in there with
Jefferson and
Addison, and with Addison. I'd love it. Love it.
And he's in the NFC.
Worst case scenario,
Buffalo.
If Luther Burden puts on a Denver Broncos jersey, I'm gonna vomit.
That would hurt. Buffalo would hurt. Somewhere where I don't really want him to end up in.
No, but like Buffalo, I'm good with Luther going and losing the AFC title game every year. That's fine, man.
Nah,
You know,
no,
I don't wish the weather on him, but he gets to play with Josh Allen.
no,
I don't
no,
I don't
no.
hate Buffalo. No Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's a trash organization, and they already have diva wide receivers that he doesn't need to be around that I don't like. So I don't. Cincinnati would be actually maybe even worse than Denver. I side with you there.
Maybe I like Houston. They could use some receiver help. I mean, I forgot who they signed, but they don't got Diggs. I think it's just really Nico Collins in there.
Tank
He,
Dell
he,
coming off a catastrophic injury.
I think well, I don't know. He may not be ready.
Did he
So
go elsewhere? Okay.
well, no, I mean with that injury, I don't think he's gonna be ready for next year at all.
Yeah.
So that's another reason you can fit him and CJ. That could be a nice little connection. So Houston at 25 would also work.
Nah, Luther, go enjoy the NFC somewhere, dude. I'll root for you then. So, all right, let's see if I know there were a couple other football questions in there, so we got a few minutes left if we can hit them up because it's been a while since we've talked football on here, so I want to make sure to do it. Sam Horn focusing more on football because he has a real shot at starter. Mizzou baseball is so bad, or he hasn't been cleared to pitch. I mean, it's the last one. He's supposed to be somewhat cleared to pitch. Like, look, I don't know what the deal they made at the beginning was, but if I was Eli Drinkwitz this spring, I 100% would have sat down and said, Sam, do you really want to be my starter? Because if you do, give this other thing up, man. They're terrible. You're not going to help them. You might get hurt again. I need your full, undivided attention on it. Like I would have said, by the way, we're paying the scholarship, we're paying the NIL money. It's 100% what I would have said to him this spring.
Yeah, I know Coach Rink said something last week about he did some work in the bullpen the weekend before. He did some work, I think it was last Wednesday. Not sure if he's done any more work since then, but I want to assume maybe he has. But he's not. I thought it was funny that Drink was giving the update, and it's like this is more of a Carrick Jackson. This is something.
Well, Carrick Jackson did. Henry had one from Carrick Jackson.
Okay.
Before that, so he did say something.
Oh, okay, cool. I didn't know that, but
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah, I would have had this conversation with him long ago. Me personally, if I was Sam, get on that mound. I mean, that's because every time, what is the number one thing you hear when someone says Sam Horn? That guy can throw 98.
Yeah.
I mean, and if we in this era of money and stuff like that, and in baseball, the longevity is clearly better. I get it, but I get wanting to be a starting quarterback in the SEC for Missouri. Like I 100% get that, but I would have thought this conversation as far as like where you want to play, where you want to be at, what you're going to have your attention. I don't know. I thought that conversation would have happened much sooner, especially after the injury.
I kind of agree. So this feels like a good place to finish on this. Let's assume you're Dave Winfield. You're good enough to be a first-round draft pick. First of all, do you have any idea who Dave Winfield is? Did I just throw?
I know him as a baseball player. I didn't know he played football.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so he's the only guy ever to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. So if I tell you that, like, you will succeed at the one you choose, you will be a first-round draft pick, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA. What are you picking?
Easy baseball. Give me that bag. No salary cap. I mean, all you got to do is finesse your way into a big market where they just can give you the entire world. And now you're, Juan Soto, or, you're a
probably the least chance in baseball for like a life-altering injury.
That too, we're just now seeing in the NBA, some of the folks get up there and been able to play, 15 to 15, like at this point, 15 years, you could still be in your prime now in the NBA. There's still some guys like that. You can kind of get to year 20 and still be a decent player. But in the major leagues, they've been doing this for decades where guys are playing 20 plus years, still going. So to get that money and to not have to worry about injury and stuff as much, it easily would be baseball for me. Although of the three sports, it's not my favorite.
Right. So I was thinking about this, and I think I land on the NBA. And here's why. Because it is like you can get hurt in the NBA, but how many guys do you see that have like football, man, like your life can change, right? Like torn ACLs suck, but it's not changing your life. There aren't very many guys that get hurt on a basketball court in a way that the rest of their lives are altered. But it also has a little bit of upside over baseball in that I think you can just set yourself up with, like, you see a lot more NBA guys that have endorsements or, TV careers afterwards than you do, I think, because like baseball's just this anonymous thing. Baseball has gotten so much less popular that I don't think, like, I can't really think of very many baseball players that have these like national ad campaigns. Can you?
That's fair. Although my retort to that would be, if you are the player Dave Winfield is, especially in this era, you're making so much money, you don't have to go into TV if you don't want to.
Well, and that's true of any sport, right? I'm just saying you could play your 6 years in the league and 8 years in the league, whatever. And if you decide that the $100 million you got isn't enough and you need something to occupy your time, I think there are better opportunities there after a baseball I mean, the NFL is clearly number one in that category, but like, I don't want to get hit in the head and not know my name when I'm 46 years old. So I probably pick baseball instead of football.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, like, I'm just being honest, man.
Yeah, okay. You're right. You're right. You're right.
So that's where I go. So, all right, guys. We're gonna do this pretty much weekly. We'll switch it up. Sometimes be both guys. Sometimes one or the other. Sometimes we may do some things like we did with Kareem Rush last week. If you haven't checked that one out, check that out. Had a conversation with Kareem on Friday. He's got some bourbon you can drink, and I know you guys probably like that. So get in touch with our buddy James Carlton, State Farm Insurance, carltoninsurance.net. You can give him a call at 314-961-4800. We're right about 36 hours away from the football portal being open at the same time as the basketball portal being open, the same time as women's basketball trying to add like 9 players to the roster. This is going to suck, guys. Hope you enjoy it. Talk to you next time.